was pulling this closer.
Oh.
And
Oh, 720.
How do I say go?
how do you say go?
One minute.
Hit right post. Here, and if you wanna, you can write a message here if you want. Yep, we're all set. We've been live.
So, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to our last Fireside Chat series for the night for the series. Wow, this summer has flown by, right? Thank you to our partners who have made this possible. We have Parkside UCC Church, Christ the King, Living Hope, St. John the 23rd, and A Place to Be Spirituality Center, of which I'm Kelly Levens, for those who don't know me, director of the center. So welcome. We have some new faces here tonight. I'm so excited that you're here. We have an awesome speaker tonight. I want to introduce to you, we have Erica Turner from Bridge the Divide. Now, if you don't know about that organization, it's an amazing organization. She is the executive director. And Bridge the Divide is a forum for talking about racial reconciliations and some of the race issues. I mean, how timely is our evening tonight with some of the things that are happening in our own city or close to us? They seek to identify instances of inequality and inequity, foster empathy, and educate to raise up the issue of race relations and help us all understand better the issue. And I'm sure that, Erica, you're going to talk about it so much better than I can even introduce it. And so, let's welcome Erica. So I've had the chance to get to know you a little bit over the course of planning for tonight, but I know many in our audience don't know you very well at all. And so if you would please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into this ministry.
Sure. So thank you very much for welcoming me here. This is great. I have lived in Cedarburg, so just down the road, for going on 13 years. I am married. My husband and I have been married for, I pull out the toes, 28 years. 28 years, and we have 3 children. So it's been, Wisconsin has been our home. We showed up to Wisconsin courtesy of the U.S. Army. So he was stationed here, and that's how we got here. No family or anyone here. And I thought that once I realized that I was in a mostly white suburb, like 97% or so in Cedarburg, I told my kids that we were going to be missionaries to Cedarburg. I didn't know how else to describe it to them when we got here, because a couple of them were pretty young. And I said, this is going to be different. The people that are here may not have talked to folks like us, let alone live next door. So people might react a little differently to you, and it's going to be a learning experience, and this is how I want you to handle it. And I, for 10 years or so, thought that was going to be the way to fix any kind of issues between races. And it really did. It made me feel better, but it didn't fix anything. And about 3 years ago, when Sherman Park was burning, I decided that we needed to talk more, because I was seeing social media posts about that experience and realizing that what people were really thinking behind the scenes, that it was inaccurate, and I didn't know how else to fix it other than having conversations. So it really was, it started with a conversation with my friend Heidi, who is Associate Director of Bridge the Divide. We had conversations. We wanted to kind of spread this forum and include our community, and thought that conversations were just the way to go. We had to start somewhere, and that's what we chose to do, and Bridge the Divide was born.
Really a courageous ministry when you are trying to foster a new dialogue on a topic that has a lot of sensitivity around it.
Right.
How has your spirituality shaped that ministry for you?
For me, God is love. So, of all the things that I could do or do well, if I don't memorize scripture as well as others, if I don't read the Bible as much as others, if I take the commandment that says you have to love everyone, then that was a thing that I felt like I was doing really well. And it's also a part of Bridge the Divide. We talk a lot about loving each other well. And love includes being nice, but love also includes lament, and love includes justice. So it felt like our quest to love people more, love people better, teach them how others need to be loved or would rather receive love from another, and that it's flowing from God out to people, so that makes it good. So it just felt, it feels, even now, it feels kind of simple sometimes to just say, but loving one another doesn't necessarily say agree with every political view. It doesn't say agree with every local ordinance. It doesn't say agree with how I keep my yard versus your yard. But it still says love, and love is what we're trying to do, and this is a part of it.
Thank you. Love is so easy, or so simple, but it's not so easy, right? It's one of the hardest things to do.
Correct. Yep.
So I'm wondering, who in your life shaped that perspective for you? Who in your life perhaps paved the way for that to become who you are today?
I would have to say my community. So not necessarily an individual person. I am from Cleveland, Ohio, from the inner city there, large intertwined Black community. And we lived for a time, my mother and I, in poverty, and your neighbor, you know that your neighbor loves you when your electricity gets cut off so they cook for you. You know that your neighbor loves you when one person has lost a job, but another person that is going out to work needs childcare, and you can help each other. So that's what community felt like to me. And I think I find myself seeking that again when I say that I want my community to be better and love each other, to be less transactional and more, I see that you're missing something and I have it, so why shouldn't I help you with it? I see that you're experiencing something that I'm not. Why shouldn't I come alongside you and grieve with you as you experience it, even if I don't understand what it is? So that I think that sense of community has been, it's been supporting the love. I love God, God loves me, I love community, community loves me. And so that's what that love has always looked like to me, and I think that's why it's kind of feeling like that's what I need to find again, the love in the community and not the division in the community. Love doesn't mean positivity all the time either. I think that's a misnomer. It doesn't mean that you have to smile at every person every minute of the day to prove you love them. It doesn't mean that you have to never point out the inequities, the issues, in order for it to be love. I think love is in spite of that and including that.
Thank you. I I really appreciate how you really talk about love as a relationship and the expression of love in relationship with others. And I mean, that's what Jesus did, right?
Right.
Express it in relationship with others. I'm curious, how have you found that expression, or have you not found that expression in this part of the world, in this Cedarburg, Grafton, in this neck of the woods? How are you finding that today?
It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle because those of us that grew up different ways, different backgrounds, we all bring this different baggage to the table. And when I feel like I can sit and listen to you tell me about your story, but you can't listen to me tell you about my story. So it doesn't feel like a proper relationship. You know, it's very one-sided and very unequal. So it's felt, I don't know if I've said it before, it's felt really transactional how community looks to me here, and not just the love that you love on people the way I would like. So it's been a struggle.
I'm sorry that it's been a struggle. What is it like for you as a Black woman living in a predominantly white area? What is that experience like for you? I mean, you said transactional, but
Right. I would say disappointing, and I think part of that is the way that I saw racism when I was younger was as a poor girl living in the inner city. And I thought that the racism, that a part of it was, well, there's a class issue. No one is listening to you because you're a poor person in the inner city. Or there's always the us and them. If they would do better, they would have more and their lives would be, and I was the they. So what I really thought was, I am here, I live next door, so our houses are the same, our cars are the same, our children are going to the same schools, we have the same educational background. That's gonna be the thing. That's the difference. And now people will see. And then in spite of that, what I thought was closing that gap between the us and the them, that it was still there. So it's, and I think to some extent, I can't speak for all Black people, obviously, but to some extent, I think that we are kind of used to that because you're either in an all-Black community or an all-white community. There isn't an in-between. There isn't a place that you live where you have your neighbors that are of all different races, or you go to church with people that are all different races, or you work where people are all different races. So I think it's kind of a typical experience, and when things are typical that shouldn't be typical, you kind of normalize it, and you get used to it. If I would say, you know, what would I want it to look like, it doesn't look like that, but I'm used to it not looking like that. I'm used to stairs in the grocery store or stairs walking down the street, you know. I'm used to that. So. Yeah.
I feel like
I know. It sounds, I mean,
no, it's breaking my heart. And
this was not supposed to be, oh my gosh, this poor pity party.
No, but I really appreciate that perspective. I think it's difficult for us who are not, you know, who don't have those experiences to understand. So I so appreciate that you are sharing that. It breaks my heart. And I wonder what helps you deal with that. I mean, you get used to it, but that doesn't mean you deal with it, right?
Right.
There's a difference. And
Right.
so I'm wondering, underneath the get used to it, how do you reconcile that with your such strong belief of loving each other in community?
Right.
How does that come together?
Right. There's been blessed with a beautiful nuclear family. So inside of our walls, inside of our home, a saying from the Army that we took away is home is where the Army sends you. So as long as we were together, it kind of matters less what's happening outside, because inside our little home is safe and loving, and trying to find ways for my children, my husband, myself, to find some of that love and camaraderie outside of the home to expand it. You know, we feel like we're safe at home. We are able to separate the love of God from the actions of His people. So that's also where there's this hope lying in, okay, but these are people, and we're all humans, and we're broken, and we're not good at all the things that we do. So God loves me, and God will care for me always, even when I'm struggling struggling with his people that I feel like aren't caring for me the way I think that they should. So that's it. There's still a hope. Otherwise, you'd just be in despair all the time. Like, this is just bad all the time. There's still God. There's what's happening now, and then there's what's happening in the future. And the way that generations of African Americans have done is you fight to make it better. And there is it's not joy, it's satisfaction in the fight, that you're not just saying, oh, woe is me, this is bad, still trying to make it better. And there's some hope in that too, that you're not just laying there and letting it happen.
Thank you for sharing that. That process of making it better can get really messy though.
Right, messy and exhausting.
You
and
are
then I just
very busy
and crochet. Crocheting helps, knitting helps. That pair of socks, though, I don't know, that's kind of getting my anger a little bit. Those socks are hard.
I'm not sure it's about the end product, it's about the process, right?
It is. It's a rhythm. I love to sing, so that you can have a rhythm with your yarn, with your hook, with your needles, and you can still sing, and you can still pray, you can still do all of that and enjoy it, and making myself take those breaks. You know, I wish I was one of the people that said, oh yeah, I feel so much calmer when I run. Yeah, no. No, that's scary. I want to come back. I can't go running, but I can sit for half an hour and crochet and get those endorphins going a little bit there.
Whatever feeds your soul.
That's right. That's right.
Whatever feeds your soul. You work with your ministry of Bridge the Divide.
Yes.
I have to ask, I'm going to go here.
Okay, do it.
Yeah, I know, right? Because it's going to, we've all been watching the news.
Yes.
We all know it's fair enough about what's going on.
Yeah.
You're in the thick of it
Yeah.
with your ministry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to open the floor and say, I don't even know what question I have for you around that, but how are you feeling about all the messiness of all of this?
There's a small part that says, we've been doing this for 3 years, and I am glad to see that some people that wouldn't talk to us 3 years ago, or weren't aware 3 years ago, are becoming aware, and are coming to us saying, so what can we do? How can we understand? How can we grow and educate ourselves? So, you know, on the one hand, like, this is great, because it's not my job to change hearts and minds, right? That's God's job. I'm planting all these seeds the way I think that I am supposed to, the way I think that He wants me to. But sometimes you don't see what that looks like, because you planted the seed, and it's 3 years later, and people will come up to say, we heard about you, and we want to come and join and be a part of this change. So it feels a little off-putting that I wish you had been there 3 years ago, because then maybe we could have been changing more by now. However, that's not the monkey on my back. That wasn't my job to do, and I have to be happy that you're here now. It's still a little frustrating to think the conversation in 2020 is the same conversation that my mom was having when she went to Kent State, the same conversation that my grandma was having when she was a domestic worker in Georgia. So it's hard to push through those sometimes, thinking this is not a new conversation, but there's new ears that are listening to it. So I feel like one of the things that I am supposed to do is talk to those folks, because it's easy for me to talk to people, because it's easy for me to be empathetic with people, and I think after having those conversations, it's easier for people to be empathetic about what I'm talking about, because this relationship, that this is a give and take, and you're listening very well to me, so I certainly can listen to you. Oh, I didn't realize that, thank you for sharing that. So that's what I do, which is not the same thing as what other activists are doing, and there is a spot for many spots for all of us to do all of these things. And I think that people can maybe connect with us first and figure out that they are ready to do something more in a political realm, and they're ready to transition over to another group or another organization and find their rhythm in what they want to do. But we're here in suburbia for that first step. You have to take that first step sometimes, so it's easier to take it with someone who is here, a part of your community, that you can trust with your heart and be vulnerable with, and start that process. So we're here for that, even if people don't know if they're ready for it yet. So we're here waiting.
You're a pioneer.
Yes, a
You really
pioneer.
are.
That's right.
And you are breaking down barriers. And you're also, I see you as a prophet. A prophet to a world that very much needs that voice.
Hear the voice.
We all know the term Black Lives Matter, right? But I think it means different things to different people. And so I'm curious, what does that phrase mean to you?
I am, of all the identities, I say I am a Christian, I'm a Black woman, I'm a mom, I'm a professional, I'm a nurse. I am a person that is, you can't describe me in one word. I'm not a fan of labels. I'm not a fan of people trying to put me in a box or a corner to say, if you believe this, this is what you mean. I say what I mean and I mean what I say, and I say that everybody should be treated equally and love God with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, all of your strength, and you love others as yourself. So that includes Black lives. I walk around in this skin as a Black woman, but I don't label myself under any organization, any group, any other bylaws, I just am who I am, and I am trying to do what I think is the best thing. So Black Lives Matter is a phrase that I can say all the time, but I don't like to be pigeonholed into something to say, well, that means you believe this. Did you ask me that? If you didn't ask me and I didn't tell you I believe that, then don't assume that I believe it. So it's funny when things are starting to come, there's so many people out and about. Oh, so you must believe this, especially when we're fighting on Facebook. There's lots of fights to be had on Facebook. But so you're this and you're this kind of, you don't know me. Ask me what I believe and what I think about an issue or about what's happening right now, and I'll tell you. But you can't assume things about me. You don't know what I believe. So that's the struggle I have when we start talking about other groups and agencies and organizations. I believe what I believe, and I believe what I say for Bridge the Divide.
What a great message. I mean, we human beings have a tendency to pigeonhole all the time. We make assumptions. That's what we do. We group people together. But what a wonderful way of saying, hey, wait a minute. I may not. That's not me. I'm unique. So thank you. What a great voice to be heard across all channels.
I'm an only child, so I'm used to just being kind of, are you this? I don't know. I'm whatever I want today.
Well, with that, why don't we open it up for questions for the audience? I'm sure that there's a few out there, one or two.
No, there's no question.
No. And I'm going to repeat his question for our online audience.
Until this year, I couldn't have told you anything about Bridge the Divide. So I think maybe for those of us in the room that maybe could stand to learn a little bit about more of the mission and operations, the practices or whatever of Bridge the Divide. I wonder if it's like an organization that's unique to Cedarburg, or is it more of a statewide or nationwide organization?
Yeah, so tell us more about Bridge the Divide, please.
Is that cheating? So like I said, it was. I've lived in Cedarburg, so we started it in Cedarburg. It was Heidi is a writer, and so she wrote an article about my family for the Cedarburg Bridge, a little marketing magazine. I think every not neighborhood, but every city has it. Like there's a Mequon Bridge, and so she wrote an article about my family. We were again watching all of the unrest in Sherman Park just every night, watching, wanting to share or talk it through with people, you know, at my church or in my community, finding it very hard with what they were posting. So I put out a post that said, who wants to talk about race? You know, not the keyboard warrior behind your screen hiding, but let's talk in person. Who wants to do it? Nobody responded. Like, okay. So I tried it again, and I got 4 people that showed up at my house to say, okay, let's talk about race. And they got there and they said, okay, Erica, what do you want us to do? I have no idea. I don't know. I just wanted it to not be on social media. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. We went from those 4 people in my house to about 15 people a month or so later in the upstairs of Fiddleheads. Then we got to, I remember I think it was the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's death. We were having a meeting in the lower level of the Cedarburg City Hall. There were 35 people there that day. So we decided this may be a thing and we should probably figure out how to give it a name. We didn't have a name. And find a location. So the Cedarburg Library agreed to sponsor us just as a program. So really, without the Cedarburg Library saying, we are legitimizing what you're saying in your work and your mission, which really at the time was just to have conversations because I didn't know what else to do. I think that's why it feels very Cedarburg based. But what we say in our mission statement is that this forum, which includes conversation, building relationships about racial repair, racial reconstruction, because it's all broken. So we're trying to repair it, fix it all up, and then ultimately reconciliation, which again, to the spiritual aspect of it is, we were reconciled with God in the garden. Reconciliation seems like a thing, but if we're talking about races of people that have never been reconciled, that never been conciled, is that right? Then how can they possibly be reconciled? So that's a thing that we deal with. Anyway, it's supposed to be an Ozaukee County group because I live in Cedarburg, Heidi lives in Cedarburg. Cedarburg Library has been the ones that are sponsoring us. It feels very much like a Cedarburg organization, but we connect with the libraries in Port. We haven't so much with the library in Saukville, but whenever we have an event, our goals are we want you to read, because you shouldn't have the one black person you know out of the 3% of us in Ozaukee County, maybe there's 5%. You shouldn't have to go to that one person to educate you on everything. So we want you to read. Here, let's recommend some books for you to read. We will bring in speakers. Just because I am a black woman doesn't mean I know, I was taught the same history as my white peers, so I don't know the appropriate history that we missed out in school. So how can I tell you about what we missed in school if I don't know? So we find humanities experts, Brio, Reggie Jackson, have him come in to speak. We find speakers that this is their work to know and learn and be educated, and invite them into lecture style series with us. We have sometimes the racial schism sometimes it's just proximity. Sometimes we just need to be together somewhere. So some of our events are simply, let's have a dining event, and we're gonna have different people together. Let's have people come in. We had Black Panther playing at the Rib. So after that, we had a talk back, and we had African drummers, and we had African cloth displayed, just to have something different in a town that has a lot of sameness. So we try to do different things that may appeal to different people that will still get us on the same road of, you need to be aware of what you don't know. You can't fix something you don't know. You need to be aware of what you do or what you don't do, how that affects this issue of race. And then you need to be in proximity with people that are different than you. You need to leave the bubble. You have to see other things, and if I can't get you to see other things going to another county, maybe we'll bring them here so that you can kind of see and not be so afraid of this thing that you didn't know that the television or your grandmother told you was this horrible thing, that it's not really. But how would you know if you've never had a meaningful, intimate relationship with a person of color? How do you know? How do you know they're wrong? So it's kind of all of those layers of things to get you to a point where you say, okay, I have to unlearn a lot of things. Now I'm ready to go to the Common Council meetings and talk about what diversity, equity, and inclusion should look like in our cities. Then you're ready to come with us to the school board meeting to say, why do I have to be almost 50 to learn about these historical facts? Shouldn't they be learning them in school? And if the answer is yes, do our books teach them that? And if the answer is no, then let's change it. So it's just all these levels of things that we feel like if we had a board of 50 people, if we had 100 members that were willing to do things, we could probably get our message out a little bit further, a little bit faster. But we don't. We have full-time person that's I have a real job, and then I do this. I have Heidi has little children, and she has a job. So we can't do all of the work, and that I think it impedes how quickly we can get our message out. That was a long answer. Did you get what you needed?
Absolutely, thank you.
Good. Jenny.
From online, kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, there's a question about how do you advertise your cause, or how do people hear about you?
So Jenny is reflecting an online question of how do you promote your events? How do people find out about you?
We are, as the world is now, looking more online, but really previously it was if we decided to have an event, we held most of our events at the Cedarburg Library, that I would voluntold one of my children, print these flyers, go to every coffee shop downtown and put up these flyers, put one up in the cultural center. Okay, who's going to go to Grafton one day? Okay, make sure you put one up at the Grafton Library, and Goodwill has a community board. We got to pin these up everywhere. And part of that was donations. We don't have funding from anywhere, so the only thing we could do was just print from our printer and put things up. We've been getting more donations over the past year, so now we have a new fancy website, and we like to direct people to our website. We try to maintain a Facebook page with some events on there. So those are really the two main ways now that you can find out what we're doing. We do have a newsletter, so we send out a newsletter monthly, and that newsletter will have some, these are some of the things that just happened. There was a virtual bridge run that we had, it's been a month and a half now, that Cedarburg Associates at Thrivent did with us. They hosted for us, and we had this virtual 5K, so they had things on their Facebook page. So it's a newsletter, it's a Facebook. We dabble in Instagram, not very much, and then our website. Yes, my fancy cards. I brought some cards. Another thing that Bridge the Divide would like to do as a part of bringing awareness is finding photographers of color that are able to do work for us. As we talk about resources that you can find, we typically have steered people to Amazon, and we're trying not to do that. Aren't there independent bookstores? Aren't there Black-owned bookstores that we could share some of this information about them with? But we have a lovely picture from a photographer down on North. I want to say it's 4th and North. There's a mural that looks like a quilt with faces in it. So that's on the front of our card. But it's hard to get the word out, and it's also a little daunting thinking, well, if 100 people said, we need you today, I couldn't do it. So it's a kind of a, but we do have cards up here also if anyone would like to take home a card. And the website, can I say the website? The website is bridgethedivide.life, L-I-F-E. If you do another Bridge the Divide, I think there's a youth political group that's called Bridge the Divide somewhere out in the east. That's not us. We try to stay away from politics. We try to say that I used to say we're apolitical, but they told me you couldn't say that if you're really trying to push for some changes, and some of that equals laws and policies. So we say that we can be political, but we're not partisan.
First of all, thanks again for coming today. Very timely, like Kelly was saying too. You mentioned 28 years of marriage and 3 kids. Me too. I was wondering if you could, though, maybe talk about some unique challenges of raising 3 kids in a predominantly white area versus, what I had to do dealing with raising my children.
So Dan is asking about raising your kids. What are some of the challenges of raising your kids in a predominantly white culture, society?
There are a few. One of them was how to school the children. So I actually homeschooled our kids once we moved to Wisconsin. It wasn't a goal of mine ever, but when we were in Michigan, the kids went to it was a conservative Christian church school. We are, again, things that people assume about me. I'm a pretty conservative kind of lady. And we got to Wisconsin and didn't find that same school and found out that they used a lot of homeschool curriculum. So one of the reasons for our decision was we really liked how you could teach about your religion, about your values when you were doing it yourself. You could make sure that they got it. But you could also make sure that they got information about your culture and about your heritage that they weren't necessarily going to get in a school where we're 97% white. The kids did still go to some of the high schools, kind of 2 classes at a time, because they allow you to do that when you homeschool. And even in that small interaction with their classmates, my kids they've told me stories. Some of the stories they didn't tell me till after they graduated from high school. And when I asked them why, they said, well, because then you would go up and you would talk to the teachers and talk to the school. Yeah, no, that's bad for us. If kids are calling us names in the hallway, and my one daughter really felt like she was the only black person in her class. She didn't know anybody else in her graduating class that was black. So it's just like, if they're calling me names in the hallway, and you come up there, I already have the stereotype to fight of the angry black woman, and you show up on the steps and demand that they make these changes, well, it's only me. Everybody's gonna know that it was me that told, and then once you leave, it'll be worse for me. So they didn't tell me things that they should have told me. I've had my son who used to work downtown. All of my kids had their first jobs downtown, which is one of the great things of little small town Cedarburg. They could walk to everything before they could drive. They could all get to their jobs. And he would go out for break, which was on the main street, and have kids drive by and yell at him to go back to where he came from. And I'm like, well, where did you come from? Down the street? I don't understand. And having to explain to them what they meant, which is also a struggle. If I don't want my children to be bitter and angry, but they need to be aware of how other people think of them and how they may be treated, I have to tell them about it. We have had, I don't know how many of you have heard about the talk, had the talk with my son on what you do when the police stop you, what you don't do. No sudden moves, you ask permission for any move that you make. You can't mouth off, even if the stop was no good, which I think to date, I want to say that my son has had 5 interactions with the police. Only one of them was a citation. So when you say to people that, I think you might have some bias, they go, of course not. I'm not racist. Did I call you a racist? What I said was, I think you have some bias, and you don't know what it is. You don't see it, but I see it. I'm the outside looking in. I see it, and I want to talk to you about it. My son was stopped by police walking on the same street that we live on, but in a different area of the neighborhood where people didn't necessarily know him. And there were 3 calls to the police station of a black guy walking down the street. So the police had to show up to say, hey, what are you doing? Walking? Yeah. Oh. And then they left, which was fantastic. So, I mean, that's a great interaction, but why does my son, before he turned 20, have to have so many interactions with the police? Why? Nobody else's teenage son gets stopped walking down the street to see what you're doing and then drive away. Nobody else gets stopped. He got stopped on his motorcycle twice in 2 weeks because of the, what's our big Friday in the park in Cedar Creek? He got stopped in the same, he got stopped in the same place for not doing, well, we're just checking everybody out. You're just checking some people out. And how do I talk to you about that without being the angry black woman who has an agenda? I need you to stop stopping my son. So my daughters have not had that same interaction with the police, but my son has. And the positivity, you don't know what the intent was. Does the intent matter if before my son leaves small town America, he's been stopped by the police more than most people have in their entire lives? So it was a struggle, and I think the other thing that kind of weighs on me the most, and it made me think about regrets that I had for staying around in a place that everyone was so different from us, is that I have my oldest daughter went to grad school in Boston. And when she was in grad school, she was a political science major, she called home one day so excited about this great discourse that she had with a room full of people that were from different countries, they were different races, they were different religions. They didn't agree on half of the stuff they were talking about, but it was fantastic. And that she never had that while she was here. That's not fair. Why do you have to be 20-something years old, like 24 I think she was, before you have a chance to be in a room full of people that don't all look the same and don't all look like you and have a good conversation? So some of those regrets are, why did I stay? We didn't have to stay. My husband retired from the Army. So the Army got us here and he was retired. And then I think, well, maybe we should have left. Because our experience here, although it may be good for some other people, it wasn't good for us. It wasn't bad. I don't want to pretend like we aren't blessed beyond belief. We have a fantastic life. It's great. But we have all these anxieties and traumas associated with the racism that's just embedded into the country, that maybe if we had lived somewhere else, we would have had to feel that and deal with that all the time. And, if we're the adults in the house, why didn't we leave? Why didn't we move? But the kids are okay. I think they're kind of cool. They turned out all right. Every now and again, you don't know when you're the parent. Like, I taught them this. Now I'm going to see, oh, they did it. Yeah.
So are they living in the area? Where are they? What are they doing?
I have two home now. One is finishing college, and my son is in the perpetual state of, I wonder what I'm going to do now. So, I don't know, but he's the baby, so I think that comes with the territory with the baby. And my oldest decided that she loved the East Coast because there was so much diversity of skin color, of religions, of thought, that she really enjoys that you don't get in small town middle America. So she's out in Baltimore, and I don't think she's coming back.
Thank you. Other questions? No questions there? Jackie, do you have some more?
There's another question about Bridge the Divide, and that is, do you aim your efforts primarily for Black people in the area, or is it people of color across the board?
So the efforts of Bridge the Divide, are they geared towards other Black people or towards people of all color around the globe?
So the laugh in the face is, the other Black people. Like, there's 5 in my house, so I think I probably know 3 or 4 other families in Oz. So, no, it is, the intent is for white suburbia. It is, I don't need to go to another city that is majority Black and tell them that racism exists. They've got it. They know, It is really being a different fish in this pond, saying I need to talk to you about something that I don't think you know about. And because I am, again, part of the community, this is my backyard. I live here, I pay taxes, I volunteer at the grilled cheese stand for the Chamber of Commerce. We are a part of this community. and we want to tell you about something. We want to tell you about something that you don't know, and it might be difficult, but if you've built a relationship, it's a lot easier to talk about something that's hard than if it's just a stranger. So it really is geared towards white middle America, suburbia. A lot of the people that we deal with that have grown up in the Midwest and maybe they've moved East Coast, West Coast, big city, and they come back and their eyes are open going, huh, this is weird. Everybody's white. Everything is white. And they didn't see that until they left and came back. So for the people that haven't gone anywhere, you know, it's a glimpse into there are things that you need to unlearn. You didn't know, and I can give you the one chance of I didn't know, because then you made that mistake and then I told you. So then when you make that mistake again, it's not because you didn't know. Maybe it's because you didn't care, which is also a painful feeling. I'd rather that you didn't realize you were doing something, but then when I've told you over and over again, when other people in other communities have told you over and over again, and you still refuse to change that behavior, then it starts to feel like it's because you don't care, not because you don't know. So, yeah, so that answer is, it is for white suburbanites, middle America. I don't have a big city experience as an adult, so I am used to being in suburbia. It's where I've lived. We've lived on post, and then we've lived in suburban areas, so it's what I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I guess a question I've had, if you've been in Cedarburg all these years and you've been in your neighborhood, have your neighbors, have you felt really not just treated, you know, like a neighbor, but beyond that? I mean, included in neighborhood parties, included, so at least, would you say in your neighborhood you felt inclusion and warmth and that community, or not really?
So the question is, with regard to your neighbors, have you felt inclusion from your neighbors as part of your close community, from those living around you?
I certainly have. They love us. We love them. We hang out. We have block parties. They, you know, the husbands that are out mowing the lawn, and they're waving just like on some Norman Rockwell picture, right? They're waving as they're mowing the lawn. So it hasn't been, and I think that's also a part of the struggle of having the conversation about race and racism and systemic racism, that it's not only about the Midwest nice. People are nice to us most of the time. People typically aren't running around, you know, yelling racial slurs at us. So they're very loving, very nice. They know us. The people that I have interacted with at church have, you know, some have said, but you're really nice. You're really different. We know you. That's kind of a part of the problem. To know me is to love me because I'm great. I can tell you that ahead of time, but then you miss out on learning it, right? So it's about the people that you don't know. It's about those automatic reactions when you see me walking down the street and you don't know me, or I walk past and I think people forget that I can hear you when you lock the door when I walk past. You know, like, I don't want your car. Do you want my car? Because maybe I should help you out. So there's a difference in the we know you and we love you and we know how great you are, and when we don't know you and then we call the police on you because we don't know who you are walking down the street. Why'd you call the police? Do you know how many people walk through Cedarburg? They're taking pictures, they're strolling, they're constant activity. But this one guy, he looked a little different. So, yeah, but our neighbors are great, and 90% of the people that we interact with are great. It's a Midwest nice. I think that this is suburbia, this is middle America. We're taught to be nice. You're supposed to be nice. I lived in the South. People were not nice, and to some degree I appreciated that because I knew exactly how they felt. Because they would tell me, I don't want you anywhere around. You need to get out of here. Sure, I'm gone then. That's fine.
Anyway, it says is, don't ask me what you should do. Get educated, and you'll know what to do. Does your organization recommend any particular books? Do you have book studies, or?
So the question is, does Bridge the Divide recommend books or have book studies to help us all become better educated?
Yes, yes. On our website, we have a list of recommended resources. Some are, how to be anti-racist. Yeah, that's important. You should know that. At some point, we also should read things that are just written by authors of color, just to give you that perspective. But yes, we do have books on our website that we recommend. We struggle with leading the book clubs because we are in over our heads and nobody has time to do it. But we make sure to find and point them out. So there's another young lady in Cedarburg that just had Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. She just did that book club. So we post that all over our Facebook page to get people to go to her book club. We are close with a group called Bay Bridge in Whitefish Bay area. They're having a community read for how to be anti-racist. So we put things up on our website, on our Facebook page, saying make sure you guys go there. Because it's not, we don't want to seem proprietary, like you can only learn from us. That's not true. and the thing that's most important is that you learn and grow wherever you're going to do it. So we try a couple times a year to do some big things, big events. It's just harder for us because we're kind of light at the top of the triangle here.
Just a quick commercial. We are doing a social justice book club. We're doing a Howard Thurman book, Jesus and the Disinherited. Howard Thurman is a black mystic from the 60s, 50s, somewhere in there. So it starts in September. Check it out on our newsletter.
Same with Cedarburg. Oh gosh, what's Pastor John's church? Faith Lutheran. Oh, sorry, I blanked out there. They have a social justice book club. So when they have books, and they deal with several different topics. So when we know that they're having books about race or an author of color that may be interesting, we share that information too.
We'll be sure to get you our information.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. We have one more question.
I do, and it's kind of controversial, I think. But
Yay.
how much do you blame the media for what we see? I mean, seriously.
So
even when we're watching TV this week, I mean, this is to the top. But even when it isn't to the top, we are seeing every night 3 men killed on North Avenue. 23-year-old black man killed in North Avenue. How much can we blame the media for what we know about black people?
So the question is, how much is the media to blame for our perception and an understanding of black people, given especially that it's in the news all the time?
All the time. Well, one of the things about my personality is I try to really be, I try not to be judgmental, right? I try to use, which it gets me in trouble sometimes, I try to use these soft words to talk around the issue to make sure that you don't get something that sends the hairs on the back of your neck up and then you're away from the table. Then we're not at the table having the conversation anymore. So what I think about the media is if we talk about how America was built, if we talk about who is in power in any given organization, whether that power is, actually I'm the authority, I control what happens here, or it's the resources, none of those things, none of those levels of power have ever been black and brown people. So what would we expect the media to show? It's exactly what the people who are in power believe, and so it's what is that? There is an African fable about the lion and the hunter, right? The hunter is the one that's giving all of the stories. The hunter is telling the news. The hunter is writing the articles. The hunters are the CEOs of all the companies. So that story is what people think the story is. And until you get black and brown people at the table in charge of that to flip that story around. Until that happens, then it's up to the people who are waking up to know you're talking about something that's not true. Maybe I should change that narrative. Then we need those people to get into the places of power so that they could be the ones that control what news shows. You want to talk about controversy, so we have a shooter from yesterday, and the words that you use to describe, oh, this young 17-year-old kid, oh, what was he mixed up in? Oh, those aren't the same words that you use when you have a 17-year-old black guy that shoplifts. He is the scum of the earth. Who are the people that are writing those articles, that are sharing those narratives? Those are the people, I don't have a person, they are bad people, but they have the wrong story. In the same way that I want to talk to people in Ozaukee County, somebody needs to talk to the people who are in control of the media to flip that system upside down. It's still one of the systems. It's still one of the systems that puts whiteness above all else. So there's my thought on that. and who has to unlearn as a part of the education? You've got to learn that story that says that if there are 10 black people killed every night all the time, then how do we have any more? Are these stories, how do any exist? They must all be gone, because according to the news, we're dying in droves every night. So it's taking the time to get educated and then start speaking truth to power, pushing back to say, I think that's not true. I think that's not true. And calling people out, which isn't popular. I'm not a fan of the cancel culture. It doesn't mean that when you say something or do something wrong, I want to take you out at the knees and make sure that you never speak of it again. I would much rather you find out why that's wrong and be a part of the solution. But in order for that to happen, I've got to call you out. Because if I don't, you'll keep doing it. So that's where an entire little bitty Ozaukee County can spend time calling people out when they're saying and doing things that are wrong and forcing a change. Whether that forcing a change is having a conversation with multiple people in your circles of influence, or whether that change is with signs and loud voices walking down the middle of the street going, we demand that you change. There's many different levels to force that change, but it has to change. If we leave it the way it is, then how do we expect anything to be different?
Amen to that. So you've given us several call to actions, right?
Do it all now. Yep.
Ask questions, be in proximity to those who are not like yourselves. You've given us so many good tools. My final question, what is your hope?
I hope that my friend Rhonda talks about people realizing that your humanity is tied up into my humanity. And I think that if people could really understand that, that could be this huge impetus for change versus an us versus them. That if people just realize, if you are the same kind of being, the Imago Dei, right? You're the same kind of being that I am, and I want this for myself, how can I not want it for you? If I wouldn't want that to happen to me or my children, why would I want it for you? So the hope is just that the feeling, understanding that our humanity is connected. Your humanity is connected. It's connected to mine. So we should want what's best for all of us, which includes what's best for me. And right now, that's not happening. So that realization, I think, is a hope that I have. Because then people will want to change things. But you got to want it for yourself. You've got to understand it for yourself. And a push for change by a lot of people, it could be a big change. We could do it. We could have that revolution and turn it on its head.
Let's get on it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it right now.
Kelly's ready.
I'm ready. Anything left unsaid as we wrap up our time together? Is there anything that is on your heart to share with us that we haven't asked?
I think it's just the love. I know that I've shared it, but it's the heavy feeling when I can't get someone to listen, like a child saying, well, why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? I love you. I would do anything for you. Why do you not want the best for me? Because this is not the best. I've told you, parents have told you, my grandparents have told you, books, we've told you that. Why don't you want what's best for me? And why aren't you willing to do something to to make that happen? So I think it's the love, connecting that love to loving yourself, that the way you want to treat yourself, that you're going to treat other people, and that would make a world of difference. That would make a world of difference.
Erica, thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I hope you'll stick around for refreshments, and I'm sure that people will have questions that they're going to want to speak with you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us online. We will post the video tomorrow, hopefully, to our YouTube page. But I just want to give a big thanks to, as we wrap up our series, what an awesome note to leave us on, this image of such a bright future. If we just are willing to do the work, just do it. Let's just do it. So hopefully we can leave tonight fired up and ready to go. Thank you again.